All right, everybody. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Swing Thoughts. Along with Coach Tim O'Connor, I am, as always, golf's spiritual leader. If there's anyone in need of spiritual leading, it's me. But here we are. Tim, good to see you, as always.
Good to see you too, sir. I'm really in love with this new music. I really am.
It's got the, you know what? It's got a little funky beat to it. I like it.
It does.
You know, and think about it. For 300 plus episoepisodes, we had the same theme, Sultans of Swing, and then we found out we couldn't use it because of some legality thing. But and then look just how quickly we've adapted.
Yeah, what a gift. See what the universe does for us.
Speaking of which,
if you're nice people, good things happen.
Well, theoretically. Speaking of which. I mentioned we're the multi-award-winning podcast. Last year we won 2 awards. This year we won 2 awards for the golf journalism. What is it of Canada? What is the organization? What is this fly-by-night organization that somehow has bestowed this honor?
Is this like when Ken Green won the Canadian Open? He said, "I'd like to thank Dumier," or whatever they're called.
What is this organization that has somehow bestowed this honor upon us?
The Golf Journalists Association of Canada.
So at the first day, I'm going to get to this later in the show. I just came back from the Ontario Senior Am, and on the first day practice round, the first guy I run into is Dave Bunker, who was one of the episodes that we won.
Yeah.
This award for featured
first
Dave
prize. That was first place, man.
First place. And so I see Bunker. I say hi to him. I go, hey, guess what? That episode that you were on last year, we won some award for. And the first thing he says to me is, where's my cut?
Exactly.
I said, dude.
I could see that coming.
You getting one? I'll tell you what. I said, you're going to get 1/3 of a driver. More about Dave Bunker later. And speaking of drivers, this episode, and as all the episodes are, brought to you by TaylorMade QI 4D drivers. Anyone that's any good is using them. You may have heard of this kid from Northern Ireland. Rory McIlroy uses it. Same with that other schmo, Scotty Scheffler. TaylorMade says they are the most fittable, the fastest drivers they've made. It's time to find your new fast. So, yes, on the show today, we'll talk a little bit about resilience, about Mr. Bunker and his recent victory, a little foreshadowing at the Ontario Senior Am, which wrapped up yesterday in Windsor, Ontario. As well today, we're pretty excited that I would say, Tim, one of our most frequent guests over the decade that we've been doing this, Dr. Carl Morris, had a stunning victory for one of his students last week, Mr. Ryan Fox.
Yeah, that was very cool. Foxy, as he's referred to.
Did you know in advance? I maybe we had been told before years ago with talking to Carl. I didn't know that Ryan Fox was his guy.
Yeah, I knew, but I had frankly forgotten when I was watching it. I'd completely forgotten. But yeah, I remember a few years ago, Carl mentioned it in passing.
You I talked yesterday briefly about a video that Carl had sent around, or somebody had sent around. We should talk to producer Nicholas, and it would be nothing to get that put up on our YouTube channel so people can watch it. Is it possible that we could share that, Tim?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think Carl would love it.
Okay,
more
perfect.
Exposure he gets on that. But it's a great video, folks. You could check it out. He just talks about how Fox played he played very quickly, which we'll get into later, but they also had a little agreement with the caddy, how they would deal with information. And so it's a very cool video, and it's, we'll get into it.
Well, Nikki, we'll post that at some point and let people know how they can get it. But our guest today is somebody that I feel very lucky to know. He's been instrumental in setting up one of the most important relationships that I've had in the last 10 years. I've been competing against this man. Well, competing. I've been playing golf in the same tournaments as him. I don't really compete with him because he's far superior to me as a player and as a human being. Just ask him. just ask him. And I thought it would be an interesting conversation to have with somebody that is in, he's been a high level golfer for a long time and has done what the dream of turning 50 and taking a crack at the Champions Tour. That dream has come to some kind of reality for our guest today. His name is Craig Watkins. Mr. Watkins, welcome to the program.
Thank you, James. Thanks for having me.
Craig is, when I say he's responsible for one of the great relationships, he introduced me to a gentleman about, 10 years ago this month. And I must mention him all the time. I call him Yoda Paul, but Paul Henrik has been my friend and teacher. And for some reason, you thought that he and I, well, it's funny now that I know Paul so well, but for some reason you thought I and Paul would be good friends, but knowing how crazy that fucker is, what was it briefly that you thought, oh, you and Howie and Paul should be friends?
Well, it's a long time ago. When was that? Actually?
It was July of 20. It's been 10 years. Literally 10 years this month. Month I've known him.
I think obviously I'd known Paul, I guess, for 15 years before that. He's been my only teacher, and I certainly had an insight into just how crazy he was, but just actually how brilliant he is. And I think that, for me, the time that we'd spent together, I knew that you were going through some, as we all do in golf, some existential crisis because the ball wasn't going where it's supposed to go.
Still am, by the way.
Right. So, so all meaning of life seems to be in question. And I thought that given the passion that you had, that he would be someone who could perhaps get you down the road. I do preface any introduction to anyone now, with some quid pro quos and caveats based on what happened and how your relationships, has gone, you and Paul. So I'm always like, there's a level of crazy here that you need to understand.
Oh no,
that
absolutely.
You may not be able to handle, right? And I think there's with Paul, he speaks sometimes in riddles, and I'd like to think that it's intentional. Sometimes I just think that he likes to speak in riddles, but his knowledge of the game is I don't think I've come across someone who speaks about the things he speaks about in teaching, and so
I would agree.
Yeah,
and Craig, we tried to have Paul on the show, and it's many episodes ago, and it was a bit clunky, but I'll tell you, I would say the same thing. I've never met anybody in the game of golf that I quote more, that I've learned more from, but also how, when I say he's been it's not just as a teacher, he's one of my best friends. And when I met him, I was 6 months sober, and Paul had been, I'd say, Timmy, 5 or 6 more years down the road than me. So more importantly than golf, I had somebody that was around my age group that I could talk to about, the ups and downs of trying to maintain sobriety, because he had done it for 5 or 6 or 7 years longer than me. And I
think that was a big part of it as well. I think I remember that was a big part of the.
And I'll tell you, Craig, more importantly than golf, that was the most important thing, and how, just what a kind and spiritually sort of stable. Well, he's not stable, but he's a spiritual guy in his own way. Yeah. So Tim, let's fast forward to Craig Watkins, who is a high level amateur golfer, a very, very accomplished player. And again, people often fantasize that thing about, what would it be like if I'm like a plus handicap and, trying to become a professional golfer. So when did you make that decision, and maybe sort of bring us along on your journey so far?
I think if I look back now, there was a couple of life circumstances that almost pushed me towards doing it. I had previously played this is my third go at, this is my third go at a professional sport. It's only the third time. I was a pro goalkeeper when I was 19. soccer, and I had a bad car accident, and I got involved in beach volleyball in my rehab, and I turned out to, be a pretty good beach volleyball player. So I played, for 4 years on the World Series tour, got, qualified for the Olympics, wasn't sent to the Olympics because I was white, and my government in South Africa didn't like that. They wanted
Wait a second. You're white.
Yes, I
Anyways,
know. I'm African, but I'm African, but I'm white.
Anyways, keep going.
Anyway, yeah. So, I think I've always, I don't know, I've always wanted to swim in the biggest pond that I could swim in. We've been through a lot of, seasons in life in different sports, and a lot of people that I was with who were accomplished were very comfortable being big fish in small ponds, and I just felt that I always wanted to measure myself up against the best. And so immigrating to Canada, I had to stop all those other sports, because I got old and sore every time I played soccer or volleyball. So, and I played golf at a fairly high level, in the amateur ranks in South Africa. I was probably a 2 or 3 handicap without much coaching. And, I watched Jack Nicklaus's fundamentals, video, and, got pretty good. And I was gifted. I'm a gifted athlete. That's obviously clear. So when I put my mind to something, I do well. But I met Paul. When I got to Canada, I met Paul, and he really was the one that kind of planted the seed in my brain. 20 years ago when we were on the range, and I don't know whether there's obviously some part of that. He was living kind of vicariously through me. He saw a way of of getting back in the game, and the game that he loved but had got out of, and started to teach me, and I got better and better every single year. And the couple of years before I turned 50, I was suddenly playing the best golf that I'd played. I mean, look, you say I'm accomplished. I don't know that I'm accomplished. I've won a couple of club championships and I've qualified for some events, but in the scheme of things, yes, I'm a good player, but I think for me there's so much more to do, so much more that I feel like I could do based on what I believe my ability is. And so that's it's always a catch-22 with us to go, well, yeah, I'm happy that I've done some things, but I'm really still looking forward to the things that I would like to accomplish, right? What's upcoming. So anyway, the pandemic hit. I was in a kind of couple of roles, business roles, which were contract roles, and they ended prematurely. And I turned 50, and I was like, well, I got paid out for the one contract, and I thought, well, I've got a salary per se for the next 6 months, 8 months. Why not give it a go? And so I ventured over to the first competition that I entered into was the British Senior Open, and yeah, and that first year I really struggled. I mean, I look back now, I think I'm 5 to 10 times better a player than I was 3 years ago now, and but the results haven't really come. But I feel like I'm still progressing. But that experience, I missed qualifying, but I met David Frost at that event, and he qualified. I ended up caddying for him in the Senior Open.
Oh, wow.
And I think that just lit the fire inside me. Both inspirationally, because I was in the ropes and I was talking to legends of the game that obviously that I looked up to. Ernie Els, got to know them a little bit. Dave, obviously spent a lot of time with Dave at the time, and Frosty.
Okay, I'm going to interject.
Yeah,
sure.
Let's just pause there for a second.
What I wanted to ascertain was,
yeah,
I mean, obviously you're a very good athlete, and you respond. You're very good at sending things to targets and whatnot. But as you were making your way through this and witnessing, David Frost, great player, Ernie Els, where were you picking up perhaps around what we refer to as the mental part of the game?
I think when you spend time in the ropes with those individuals or guys who've been playing for so long, they do things that are obviously they've been doing it for 30 years that are almost rote, inherent, robotic for them. But it's eye-opening. Their warm-up routines are so regimented. Their preparation for the tournament is also just incredibly detailed. Now we take that for granted. You know, Howard and I played. You know, we've played in a bunch of amateur events, and you get a practice round or maybe 2 practice rounds, right? And I think the level of detail that you can get in 1 or 2 practice rounds is fundamentally insufficient for you to, to really understand strategy for that course. And you look at those, the players that have played a long time on the same course for year after year have such an advantage in terms of seeing the course in different conditions, knowing where to miss it, their strategy on each hole, et cetera, et cetera. So I think mentally, it's an interesting group of people because there's an aspirational group there who haven't quite made it and are still really grinding, and you've got a group of people who are really kind of in retirement mode, and they're there, they want to play well, but if they don't, it's not such a big deal. So you can see both groups of players out on the golf course, and frustrations. You know what? I think the biggest takeaway for me was that they were just men. Actually, there's what you see on TV when you see highlight reels and watch even a production. You get to see the best only. Everyone's making 30-foot putts. Everyone's dropping down the middle.
Yeah, you see the best playing their best. That's
right.
We've talked about the false whatever of golf on the weekends. Now I've been lucky enough to be. I've played a lot of golf with Craig, and Craig is, Craig hits the golf ball as good as any professional golfer on that tour. I'm just going to say that. I walked around with Ernie Els at a tournament I was hosting a tournament a couple summers ago at the National. I walked around with Ernie Els and Chris DeMarco and Glenn Day and all the guys that would be sort of your peer group now. And yes, Ernie Els' ball striking is elite. He's Ernie Els, but I can say this, having spent, dozens of rounds and hitting golf balls with Craig for 10 years, Craig's ball striking is elite level. So for the listeners here, can you give us, beside the fact that there are different personalities on the Champions Tour, when you're standing on the range hitting golf balls, you're probably one of the best ball strikers in that group, and some of that group would include the people I've just named. So what would an amateur, regular listener of our show, what would they notice in the difference between sort of the local guy at their club and the people that you've seen on that tour?
In terms of ball striking, or just in terms of
in terms of their ball striking and their ability to play. And by the way, am I right when I say that your ball striking is as good as most of those guys, if not better?
Yes. I mean, that's, again, I think the thing that fired me up, going to those tournaments and being in these tournaments, is that when I looked at their ball striking, I was like, well, I can hit the ball, as good, if not better than most of those guys, right? On the range, for sure. I think that one of the things that I'll take away for any amateur, that if you go and watch them on the range, first of all, is how little they move the ball. So that's something for me is, whether it's old school or not, I see shots with probably too much curve. If there's one weakness in my planning, I see the ideal shot. Well, how does the ball get from here to the hole? Right now, I can play both shots, but they don't move the ball that much. It's a 2-yard or a 3-yard draw either way, right? And so that's one thing that I think, is immediately evident to me. I'm like, well, if I'm standing on this tee when I was caddying, I'm like, I know how I would hit this. This is the perfect shot to be there, and I'd move it 10 or 15 yards. And no one does that. Nobody does that outside of. I mean, everyone talks about Bubba and guys like that who move the ball a lot, but none of these of the older tour players do that. They play a stock shot. Whenever they can play a stock shot, they'll play their stock shot, even if that stock shot doesn't really look like the ideal drive, whether it's a cut or a fade, right? And the other thing that is incredibly starkly evident is how easy the rhythm is. When you go into an amateur range, I guarantee you 95% of those individuals are swinging out of their shoes, right? Even the guys that are hitting the ball well, they're ripping as hard as they can. It looks like they're ripping as hard as they can. But the old guys have, because maybe their body's breaking down, et cetera, et cetera. They've got this level of efficiency that is just so inspiring. They just the cadence and tempo in most of their swings is so smooth, and the ball still goes. It's not like they're hitting at 220. Some of them are not that long, but they still hit the ball 260, 270, 280. Right. So those two things for me are what I would say strikes me.
So what's if you're a great ball striker, which you are, then what's the difference then? Because you've qualified for some stuff, and we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
You played in the U.S. Senior Open, did you not?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was yeah.
So you qualified. You've actually played in some big time professional tournaments. Then what is the difference between a guy who can hit it like you, and what has been the impediment to playing at that level? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like the biggest cliche in golf. It's 100 yards and in. It's like the ball striking is fundamentally immaterial. I mean, at that level, yes, it's one of those things. It's like it's table stakes. You have to be a decent ball striker to be there. But to separate yourself, it is the scoring, and it's not just about the execution of the short game. It's about the planning of the short game, and I think if I talk about the planning and the preparation for a tournament. That is where they separate us. Where do I want to putt from, right? And so when I'm 100 yards inside, or I've missed my shot, where do I want to putt the ball from? Now, a lot of them won't make the putts. Like you see, 15% of them over the broadcast because they're the leaders. But everyone's trying to putt from the same area. Right? All the good players are going, I'm hitting the ball over there if I miss. Or if I want to make a birdie, here's the quadrant I've got to putt from. To make that birdie, and they have the ability to control the short game to get to that spot, right?
So you're saying that really it's about a higher level of being able to score.
Yes, and that comes down to, like I said, it's not just about your ball striking. Well, it is, but it isn't. It is, but it isn't. It is, but it isn't. It's spin control, trajectory control, which fundamentally goes down to ball striking. But planning what that looks like. So, am I hitting it in there with a little cut spin? Am I hitting it there with draw spin? So
I'm interjecting again here.
Sure.
What do you notice about, say, their level of commitment to a shot and their level of just being able to stay with it and under, whether they're in contention or whether they're going to, they're not playing very well. I think the key difference is how do they handle just the thoughts that come in. I don't care if you're a pro or not. We all have thoughts. We're all human beings.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, in those circumstances, how do they deal with the thoughts, and how does that translate into the ability to maintain a commitment to hitting it to a certain spot?
Tim, if you're an intellectual and you're used to living in your own head, and there's a lot of thoughts going on, I think it's an impediment to good golf. And I think, and I say this with all due respect to most of those players, a lot of them are not that intellectual, and so there's not a lot of confusing thoughts. They've distilled their pre-shot routine down to a point that they go, I'm going to think about one thing or two things, whatever it is, and that's what they commit to. So once they have their target, and once they've discussed with their caddy, what the shot chip is, where I'm hitting it, and how am I hitting it, then they simply execute that. And the good ones don't doubt themselves in that moment. They don't think technically, that's for sure. And there's definitely a level of acceptance around the result that's different to a lot of amateur golfers. I mean, you play in the tournament, like Howard, you play in the Ontario Senior Amateur. You don't get to play in many tournaments. Like this is the third big event of the year, or is it your only big event of the year? This is your one go.
No, I mean it would be one of 3 or 4 events of this size, yeah, for sure.
You get three kicks at the can.
Yeah.
These guys, this is their umpteenth million kick at the can,
Yeah,
you know,
you
in
get
this
used to
shot.
it.
And so there's a level of, you know, of repetition and, you
For
know,
sure.
I'm gonna do this, and the consequence is what? Well, the consequence is I miss it or I don't make it. I think that if you can get to that level of acceptance, you know, where, you know, Rotella spoke about the, you know, every shot should live between a 3 and a 6 out of 10. You know, if it's less than 3, you're not committed. If it's more than 6, you're too focused on the outcome
Right.
to execute the way you should execute.
No, we've said that
Right.
too. A lot of guys, their only tournament of the year is the club championship, and you can see
Right.
them panic practicing the night before. They've never been to the short game area, and they're like, "Hey, I guess I should try this."
You can see that, right? There's no panic. I would say there's no, you don't see the level of panic in the amateur game that you do there.
So,
Right.
and recently, I know Craig, literally, we're recording this on a Friday morning, the 24th of July, starting at 7:30 in the morning, and Craig just got back from the UK last night, and you again tried to qualify for the British Senior Open,
Yeah.
and I, you know, like, this is how hard that game is. I think were you not 3 or 4 or 5 under?
Well, I had it. So I had it to 300. But we all knew that just before I teed off, the 126 guys teed it up for what turned out to be 5 spots. We found out it is for 5 spots, right? So Scotland, you know, the wind's going to blow. It was pretty, you know, calm in the morning. As we're teeing off, someone says, "Yeah, there's a 7 under that's just come in." So straight away you're like, "Well,
Good luck,
you know,
Craig.
I had a strategy to 2 or 3 under on this course, so that's." You know, let's tear that up, and well, let's not tear it up. But you go, you know, obviously you got to play some good golf here. And so, you know, with one dayers, that's the thing with one dayers versus the different mentality of a 1 day competition versus a 4 day competition,
I
right?
want to
And
get
that's
this
something
clear.
that I've seen.
You went all the way over there to play in a 1-day qualifier?
Yeah.
Wow. That's
So
I
you
know.
ended
I
up-
know. It's, you know, stupid comes to mind, right?
No,
My
no, no,
wife
no,
says
no.
stupid.
No,
What are you
I
doing?
bet-
Why are you doing that?
Well, we got
You
we,
should
we got
be-
a, we got a few things to get to before we let you go.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
what was the result? I know you had it. I know from talking to Paul that you had it going there for a while.
Yeah. No. So I end up 2 over. Right. I ended up 2
Yeah.
over. I had it to 3.
And
Made.
then you start pushing it a little bit.
Well, I mean, not really. I 3 after 12, I think it was. You know, and I missed an easy birdie putt. I didn't get up and down on a par 5 after striping a drive, like perfect drive, 320. You know, I have 6 iron in, and so anyway, so one mistake, then, you know, folds over to, oh, now I need to make birdie. So now I press, now I make another bogey. And, you know, and then the last 4 holes fundamentally are meaningless. You're saying, well, my strategy's out the book. I'm going to try and hit it into the hole from the fairway, because coming second,
That's right.
or coming
Well, Craig,
50th doesn't make a
Craig, I
difference.
need to ask.
Putting avoidance.
So, you know, you put yourself, you're in that category of aspirational.
Sure.
You want to play at that high level. You've gone all the way over there, all the expense, certainly to do a 1-day qualifier over there. So what's going on for you mentally, and more importantly, I'm more curious, emotionally, when you see this thing and then you see the possibility and you're kind of in that zone of, oh, is this going to happen or not? And what do I need to do? Like, how do you manage all the thinking and feeling?
Yeah, how do you?
Well, I'll tell you how you should. I'll tell you versus
No,
how you
no.
should versus
How-
how do I?
No,
Well,
yeah,
I
we're more
haven't-
interested
I-
in the
I-
reality.
Listen,
I haven't very well.
We've done
I
300
wish
shows
I had
on
the
how
answer.
you
I
should.
haven't done it very well. Well, I would say I haven't done it very well for every hole. So
Right.
I think once you make a mistake, and it's a big mistake, so a double, then all that creeps in. Why am I here? There's so much expense.
Yes.
This is the thing, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so, and you know, 3 holes later, you're like, wow, I just made, you know, another 3 bogeys, and then you settle down, and then it's like, well, it's 3 under, and you're back to playing golf. So yes, I mean,
gotta
life
be a
crashes in
drag,
onto
man.
us aspirational guys. The
Yes.
life doesn't crash into a lot of guys like that. You know?
Locally, Craig wanted me to mention one of the impetus to get Craig on
Singular.
was just quickly to mention that, you know, I for a long time around here, there was something called the Great Lakes Tour, which was a nice tour for professional and amateurs alike, but mainly a tour for guys sort of somewhere a little bit below the Canadian tour, but a higher level of amateur and professional golf. So now there's a new one. It's called the One Golf Tour, and a lot of guys listening who want to play some events, amateurs can be part of it. It's got a professional aspect to it. And just quickly, in a minute or so, give us a little background. What's it all about?
Yeah, the One Golf Tour really is an attempt to find a place for elite amateurs and even seasoned pros who don't have status to compete, on good golf courses for not a lot of money, not a lot of investment in themselves. So a one-day tour, a one-day event, I should say. Limited travel, limited expenses to stay, etc. It's not much to get in as an associate, and we're paying for guaranteed prize money. So $8,000 guaranteed every single event, 40 players maximum, and again, it's part of that. We need to practice one-day events for us who are trying to get onto the tour.
Yes,
we
exactly.
can't practice 4-day events. We have to practice one-day events. So. Yeah. Check it out, the onegolftour.com. I think it's very reasonable with great golf courses this year. Dennis Hendershot is the founder. Yes. He was the one who originated the Great Lakes Tour. Dennis is a wonderful man, they're committed to growing this so that people who want to play competitive golf and make some money. Amateurs can make $1,200 an event, and so and still retain amateur status. So we're inviting all good amateurs for that.
Well, listen, man, I wish you nothing but the best, and I love hearing about your progress. And it's the onegolftour.com. I just wonder if I took you back to, I believe it was 2017 in the regular club championship, was your narrow victory over me what prompted you to decide that if you could beat me, a geezer, some guy 50 years older than you, that maybe you had a chance against the other old guys? Or are you ready to talk about that?
I think. Look, I wished you hadn't made a 9 on number 9.
Whatever. It wasn't a 9. It was a 7.
Well, I remember having a 9-shot lead with 9 to play, and I was like, well, I can relax now. And then I went double, and I was like, we should.
No,
I should probably get involved.
I'm sorry, we run out of time. All right, Craigie, that was great, man. Great talking to you.
Thanks,
get some
guys.
sleep, buddy.
I appreciate it so much. Thanks for having me on.
There's Craig Watkins.
Bye, Craig.
Who can absolutely smash it. It's something to see. The onegolftour.com. Thanks, pal. Just let yourself out of the Zoom room and just go.
I'll do that. Ciao.
For the record, I didn't make a 9. Okay. He was leading the club championship. But that was actually, it's funny. I was 57 years old, and I was playing pretty well. It's a 3-round tournament, and I somehow got myself into the last group. And this is the guy. This is the guy. I mean, I was 57. I was still hitting it pretty good, but I wasn't hitting it Craig Watkins good. And I think I tripled the 9th hole, and he had it wasn't a 9-shot. I think he had 6-shot lead on me with 9 holes to go. And true story, he beat me by 3.
Oh, my.
Here's why.
Well, the only time I've seen him play, I've seen him on the range at Glencairn a few times.
Oh, yeah.
You're absolutely right. Pro level ball striking. Just
Highly.
that tight little draw, master of trajectory, just
high
so
ball
solid.
flight. It's crazy.
Yeah, the sound, all of it.
Yeah, I was going to say on the 16th hole of the last round. And again, probably at that point he had a 4 or 5-shot lead on me, and then he played my ball. He played the wrong ball.
Oh my God.
And that's how he only beat me by 3. But I was like, I've never let him forget that. Hey, you going to mark your ball, pro? Anyway, let's talk about our friend Carl Morris.
Yeah.
And, Ryan Fox. Why don't you take the lead on this, son?
Well, it was really fun to watch Ryan Fox on Sunday at the Open. I mean, it was like, particularly on 18, you see these media types, they could barely keep up to the guy. He's walking so fast. And I love the fact when he hit his approach on 18, he grabbed his putter before his caddy could give it to him. I mean, I just love the way he played. I call it without delay. He didn't rush. He just, as he said, he sees the shot, hits the shot, and why do you need to hesitate? You know, there's no need to double check anything or be cautious. Just hit the shot and go. And so, it was wonderful to watch him play like that. And just as a side note, nice to see him sort of renew, shall we say, the debate about slow play.
Oh yeah.
And I hope that to hell that it has an impact. So anyway, we can leave that for another day. But so the next day, I got an email from Carl, and he talks about his student Foxy, how he did well, and congratulating him. And it reminded me, oh yeah, Fox is a client of Carl's, and so some of the things that they talked about. So Carl put out this video, and he talked about how he just saw a shot, played on instinct. He just went with it, which I think is just a wonderful way to play golf. And in fact, they had some strategies. And one of the strategies was the caddy was not to be brought in to read any putts. And what the caddy was mainly just to give him the data, like on, the shots, here to the bunker, here to the back, what's the wind doing, etc. And then it was totally up to Ryan to determine the shot, the target, and all that. And I just love all that.
Yeah.
And it was so it really was we're seeing it played out in a major event. The stuff that we've heard Carl talk about on this show for years and years is what questions is the golf course asking you, and then just letting it go.
I was so impressed by him hitting driver on that hole. He knows, he knows he's tied for the lead, and I can honestly say if I were in that position, I don't think I would have pulled driver. I don't think most pros would have pulled an iron just to keep it in the fairway somewhere, because getting in the bunker is a bogey, and yet he gets up there and just mashes it. Mm-hmm. Then, as you say, gets up and quickly hits that beautiful high towering iron into the green, and while it's seemingly still in the air, he yanks his putter out, and all of that's great. But one of the things I read, and again, I haven't seen the Carl video, and as I said at the beginning of the show, we'll post it on our YouTube site. But the fact that he was so on the not offensive, but he wasn't receding. Right. He was as Paul McGinley always talks. He was on his front foot.
Yeah, well said.
And that's a place most of us don't play at. I would say this, and again, I've got recent experience. I look back at my week that just passed, and it's I played a lot of defensive golf, because as Craig pointed out, I don't play at that level. I mean, I play a lot of tournaments, but there's a big difference when you're playing at the provincial and the national level. Even when I play, big one-day tournaments where a lot of the same guys I played against, but it is a bigger stage. So I'm not, not that used to it. I've done it a bunch of times, excuse me, but you only do it once a year.
Yeah.
Or twice a year if you're lucky. Whereas, Ryan Fox has, a bunch of experience being on the front foot in those situations.
Mm-hmm. I love that expression, being on the front foot. So to me, that's a matter of, well, I'm going here. Here's where I go with it. It's a matter of trust. It's a matter of you just instinctually, you see what goes on and just what immediately comes to mind. And it's like, oh, that's the target. There's the spot to land this chip. Here's the wise shot to do. And so rather than do that thing that is so natural, it's quite, oh, is that the right thing to do? Maybe I better double check and all that. And that plays against our innate talent, and our instincts. And particularly, I put it down to this all the time. It's you can't access your talent, your skill, and your experience when you're in your head and you're starting to question and doubt. You always play better when you're just you see what's there, and it just makes sense, and you go. Every once in a while, you got to think something through a little bit. But when you walk on a green, I'm sure everyone's experienced this. So you have those rounds where you walk on a green and go, that's the read, go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
or that's the spot to chip the ball to, go. And works out better because you just play with more confidence. You put a better stroke, a better swing when it's just you're letting it go and you're in your body rather than in
Than
your
in your
head.
head, yeah. And again, what Craig said about, a lot of those guys, and we've said this, it's not a secret. We've said this, I'm sure, a few dozen times on this show, and both of our experiences of being around professional golfers, there's two categories. And Dameron would, Robert Dameron, our buddy from the PGA Tour, he would tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
They're either really, really smart or kind of dumb. And the ones in the middle are the ones that have the most trouble. Like a really, really smart guy, that was Tiger Woods. That was Jack Nicklaus. They're really smart people. Bubba Watson, Boo Weekley, Average Joe, they're just, not that they're dumb, but they're not overthinkers. And I think this is a sport where overthinking is, not great.
I think that's the key word, overthinking. Right?
Yes.
It really is. And that's where doubt creeps in, all of that. So I know a lot of people, I think for a number of years, thought that Dustin Johnson wasn't, the sharpest knife in the drawer, as they would say. But I think as we started to hear him more, you start to see how smart he is, but in a, I don't know, you could call it maybe a street smart way. You just know how far to go with thinking things through and just letting them be. I think that good athletes, a lot of people who just seem to perform well at high levels, whether it's business, arts, or whatever, just something comes to them and then they just go with it, as opposed to the overthinking part, which is, I think there's a lot of really smart people who just are able to just go with what's happening and not to just, I can't come up with a better word than overthink it.
No, I want to. What you just said a second ago, I thought was very, very insightful, and that's the phrase about whether it's Dustin Johnson or whoever, they have an ability to just let it be, to just let things be what they are, and not give them more meaning than they deserve. And I was going to say, Bob, quickly to finish up with Ryan Fox, and congratulations to our, cool thing about Carl. And by the way, for people who are wondering, people like Raymond Pryor, Carl Morris, Ed Coughlin, Dooland, all these guys that we've had on our show never tell us who their clients are.
No.
And it's funny when you find out after the fact, like we had, you've known Carl for a long time. I've known him for 10 years. We've had dinner with the guy. We both speak to him privately and correspond with him, but never has he said, oh, by the way, Ryan Fox playing in the Open Championship. But you find out after the fact, you go, Jesus. Yeah, of course. Anyway, the point being that Ryan Fox played quickly, but he didn't play recklessly.
No.
He as he said in one of his interviews, he considers the shot. Like he's not just running up there and hitting it, but once he's made the decision, that's when he goes fast.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. I prefer this. I like to say he plays without delay.
Yes.
So fast. The kind of the thing that we would take from that is that, oh, he's rushing through. No, he's not. He's just playing briskly, allowing it to happen, just letting it go. So no hesitation. It's just see target, go. And so, but one of the things I just want to make this point is that what he's showing and reminding us is what I call the wisdom of the body. And that is that we tend to think, we worship the intellect and thinking and all of that, and totally discount and actually even distrust the wisdom of the body. And like
Agreed.
I said earlier, when you just go up and you can see, like the brain science part of it is that are the unconscious parts, the subconscious parts of us, all this data comes in, the lie, the balance, what the wind's doing, all this stuff. And the basic parts of our brain take all that in at a much faster rate. And then that helps us determine, what the shot is, where to start this putt, how much force you're going to need to put into it. And when we interfere by thinking about it. And so it's the same thing, really, if you come back to, to throwing a ball to somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
They put their hand out and you throw it to them. The body figures it out. It self-organizes.
And I think at one time I thought what was interrupting flow for myself and others was putting too much onto the outcome and the consequences. But because, of the number of golf tournaments I've played, including the most recent event, during a round, I'm not really thinking about the consequences of any individual shot as it pertains to a score. Now, there was a little bit in the second round because I was trying to make the cut, so I was aware somewhere in my ether that I needed a certain number. But on any individual shot, I'm not thinking that. What I do sometimes is what you just described is I'll come up to a shot, a putt, a chip, or whatever, and go, oh yeah, I know this is where I should hit it. And then what interrupts my flow is then I start maybe thinking too much about how to do it. And it's so funny. My eldest daughter sent me a note just before the tournament, and she said, because sometimes she calls me Howard. She goes, "Okay, Howard, don't forget, trust your training." And I thought about that, like that's what is a breakdown for me, is I don't trust enough in the fact that I have trained enough to be where I am. And I think a lot of listeners can relate to that, even on a weekend basis when you're playing. We know what to do, and as you say, the brilliance of the body, our bodies know what to do, and then we interrupt it somehow.
Yeah. But when this also happens, we could say intellectually. I mean, I think we've all had the experience of, back in the day, or whether you still are, taking multiple choice exams, is that you go through and you read the question and then you look down through, A through D, and like immediately go, oh, it's C. And so you write C, and then maybe you come back and you finish it, and you still got some time, and you come back and go, is it really C? No, I think it's D. And then you get the thing back, it was C all the time. The point I'm making is that usually your first instinct is the right one.
Yeah.
And I'll just say another. So I remember doing, I did improv classes for 2 years. And so in improv, everything is done as a game. So the instructor explains, you're in a bowling alley and no one can talk or something, all these things. And so when I first started doing it, as soon as I heard them explain it, I start to think, oh, I'll say this and this and this.
Yeah.
And I totally buggered up the game instead of allowing myself to be totally present and just allow that what would come up and just let that go. And almost 100% of the time, whatever would come up and just allow in that moment would be, sometimes it would be brilliant, sometimes it'd be okay, but it would be fine.
I was going to say it's always fine.
Yeah.
And I'm not, and I don't hold myself. I mean, whatever listener and whatever level you're at, we all do the same thing. If you have a 30-yard pitch, and you want to land it at some spot to make it go to the right because the green slopes that way, I will make that. I'll go, okay, this is where I need to land it. I want the ball to roll out. I'll see the whole shot. But what sometimes screws me up is then I go to, how should I hit this? Or what is what are the parameters of this? I know how to hit this shot. I've hit it 1,000 million times in my life. For some reason, then that's what gets in my way. Is then I rather than going, okay, and one of the things Craig said that these guys do is they're not thinking how to while they're swinging. Now, again, easy for them, we would say, but it's the same for us. We've all hit 160-yard 7-iron or 6-iron, whatever that is. We've all done it.
Exactly.
But for some reason, I can't, and it's a failing of mine, I can't always just let it go and let it flow, and if you're, and I don't have a lot to share about what happened to me this week. But if we could, do you want to segue into that?
Yeah, well, I just want to share an anecdote, 2 anecdotes actually, but I'll be quick.
I want you to share between 1 and 3 anecdotes.
Thank you. Let's see if I select the right ones. No. So I played many thousands of years ago. I played in a golf marathon to raise money for junior golf. So I got sponsored and had to play as many holes as I could. So that means basically rushing. So as soon as it was dawn, I'm playing with John Gordon. We go out in separate carts and I'm running, so I hit a shot, run to the ball, run back to the cart, hit it on the green. Like there's no plumb bob and there's no reading. You just get up and hit it. First time I ever shot even par was during that. And then the other anecdote, number two, is when I coached the University of Guelph golf team in the Ontario Championships. My last year, it's in October, so there's limited daylight, and the play is usually very slow. So they put all the kids in carts, and one player per cart. Anyways, my last group gets to the 16th tee, and the rules official says, "Guys, you got to catch up to the group ahead by 18, or you get 2-stroke penalty." So these guys are freaking out. And so instead of going through their painstaking routines as they all do, they're playing a foursome, just like I explained. In my own experience, they have to hit the shot, run to the cart, run to the ball, run back. Of the 4 of them for the last 3 holes, 3 were even par and 1 was 1 over in a championship.
Yeah.
I mean, they played without delay. They were like, basically in both those situations, me and that, you're kind of forced to.
Yeah.
But that's sometimes what we need to take us out of our usual experience, our usual behaviors, and see, wow, there is a different way to do this.
I was trying to think how I would, what takeaway I could bring to, another story of, my golf tournament experience. But I want to tell you, it'll surprise you what I want to really focus on. And I'll do this part first, and then I'll just circle back and tell you how I did. I didn't make the cut, but my dear friend, a friend of yours as well, Kent Osborne, Scratch Attitude Kent, we had an agreement because he had caddied for me when I qualified for this tournament in June. He was a great help, and it was fun, and we had a good time, and we had this kind of agreement that if one of us didn't make the cut, the other one would stay and caddy for them.
Nice.
Because the way these draws happen is, there's a practice round Monday, and either you go early, late, later, early, but I didn't know what I'd be, so I had to check into this hotel for 3 nights. And as it turned out, I went late the second day. I didn't tee off on the second round until 2:40 in the afternoon.
Oof.
I was of course going to stay.
Yeah.
So I caddied for Kent yesterday, and Kent had made the cut. He's in the legends category. It's super. He's like
that over 70.
Yeah, the super geezers. Like we're all geezers, but this is the super geezer category. And Kent, in his category, I think there was like 35 guys, and only 10 guys make the cut. So Kent had a couple of nice round shots, 78, 78, and I didn't make the cut, so I'm caddying for Kent yesterday, and I can tell you, the guy played, I played a lot of golf with Kent, but in this high-level tournament, he played like he always does. We'd pick a club and pick a target and whatever, and then he gets over the ball and he just hits it. Like, it's funny, as we've been talking about Ryan Fox, it occurred to me that over the 6 or 7 years I've been playing golf with Kent, that's how he plays. Because he didn't grow up in the culture of golf. He came to golf later in life, and he just plays his own way. Now, it doesn't always work out. He'll admit that sometimes it just goes sideways. But when it's on, he's very see shot, hit shot oriented. Now, he said some nice things about having me caddy and whatever. But one of the things I did for him, though, was in between shots, because I had his... He has one of those robot carts, but it doesn't have a remote, so you have to steer it yourself. Yeah. And it's got a little wheel that inputs the speed, 0 to 6. And I had it set at 2 or 3. And I said, because he would hit a shot and then start walking. I go, no. I said, Kent, stay with me in the cart. You have to walk with me in the cart because this is the pace we're going to walk this.
Nice.
And so if I did anything for him, I slowed him down in between shots.
Right.
But you want to talk about a guy... there was one shot I was similar to what I described. It was a third shot that he had on a par 5, and it had a very extreme left to right bank the closer you got to the hole. So I said, hey, Kent, don't hit. You don't want to land this near the hole because it's going to shoot straight right. So let's pick a spot short of that, and then it'll roll out. He says, yes, takes one look, and he hits it. Like, that's, and I was very, I I was inspired by it because as an overthinker, you know, our skill levels are similar, but I will see the shot, but rather than hit the shot, I will think about how to hit the shot. Even though in my body, somewhere it knows how to hit that shot.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And that is just so interesting. But it goes, like you said, he was late to the culture of golf.
Yep.
And so that's why I think it's so important that it is discussed. And also, I'm hoping to hell the PGA Tour finally get the fucking balls
now.
to start. I know, I'm getting all excited now.
Come on now.
To start
Nick,
finding some of these guys.
Nick, edit that clip. We can't have him. What they're never going to find.
Well, come on. I mean, there has to be some consequence. It's like the LPGA Tour has more balls, if you will, to find players for slow play, because that is the influence that they have. Is that, you know, the average amateur person watch, if you're taking all bloody day and do a 4-quadrant read and standing behind the ball for half an hour, I guess that's how you play well. That's the model.
But it's, you know, as Shakespeare said, who had a very fine golf swing but no short game, he said, "'Twas ever thus." Jack Nicklaus stood there over that ball for 14 days, staring at the ball, staring at the hole. Jack was never going to hit a shot until he was ready, in that funny Jack Nicklaus voice. But that's what started it. That, by the way, when I first heard Jack Nicklaus speak, I was like,
on TV, certainly Jack was. That's what happened, you know. But you had Arnie Palmer played pretty quickly, you know.
Yes.
You know, you know what's interesting is, it reminds me, is Mo Norman. People say that, you know, Ryan Fox plays fast. Mo was known as the 747 of golf in many ways. He just played so fast, and people would say, "Mo, how do you hit so fast?" He goes, "What? Did they move the green? Did they move the green?"
So that was Kent's experience, and Kent ended up shooting 75 yesterday in the final round.
Nice. Well, I think kudos goes to the caddy for helping him out.
Well, and finished tied for 4th in the Super Geezers category.
That's excellent.
So, no, it was amazing.
Congrats, stage 1.
Oh no, it was great, and I was very. It was fun to watch him play well, and you know, and we had, you know, I think, you know, we were friends, so we were keeping it light and having some fun, and he played well. I had a different experience, but you know, it's funny. I played well enough. My golf game from tee to green was fine. Fine in that, you know, I was never in trouble. I used the same ball every day. I didn't lose a ball. It wasn't in a hazard. He didn't hit an OB. So the cut was high. It was a tough golf course. It's on Point West in Windsor.
Okay.
I'd played a tournament there earlier in the year, and then when the wind was very, very howly on the first day, and we were playing at about 700 yards further back than the Geezers category. So it was playing around 6,500 on the card, but probably played closer to 6,750. No big deal.
That's a lot. That is a lot.
It was a long golf course for me, but tee to green, I was fine. Where I kind of lost, you know, I shot 84 in the first round and 80 in the second round, so I missed the cut by 5. And 5 shots over 36 holes. Again, it wasn't a hazard. I probably didn't have my best ball striking, although at times I did. What I didn't have was this. And again, it's not complaining and I'm not whining, but I putted the ball very well. It just didn't go in the hole.
Yeah.
And so how can you say you putted it well? Well, I only had a couple of 3 putts. I think I had 3 putts, maybe 4 in 2 days. So not crazy. But those 5 and 6 and 7 footers that I lipped out, they do 2 things. Like, I'll give you an example. A week ago, I played in Hamilton. Really good golf course. Playing very long. Hit the ball pretty similar to how I did in Windsor. And I bogeyed 4 of the first 5 holes. 3 of those bogeys were 5, 6 footers to save bogey. And sinking those...
Save par or save bogey?
3 of them were to save bogey.
Oh, okay. Ooh,
So
all right.
yeah, so but my point about it is they kept me going. And I ended up shooting 76 in the first round because after I sort of stopped hitting it all over the place, those putts that go in, they provide, it's like a balloon.
Yeah.
And we've all played with people and we've played when you sink those putts, a little air goes into your balloon. And it kind of gives you a little buoyancy, and we've used that word before, that I just didn't get. And in fact, after you do that, yes, I know a story began in my brain, like, is fucking golf ever going to let me fucking think of that? But what it does do is it, as I was joking with Kent, like my balloon kept making this noise.
Oh, we've given Nick some material to work for Instagram now.
I'll give you one example. Very tough hole in the first round. I'm just grinding the best I can. I pull hook a ball left of the green. I've got this crazy 20-yard pitch up to the green. I couldn't see the bottom of the flag. When I hit the pitch, I knew it was a good one, but I said to the guys, did that stay on the green? That's how difficult this was. I hit it to 5 feet. It was a great shot. And I missed the putt. I don't miss it by way over there. It just glided by the top side of the hole. That's what I mean about not getting any of those kind of breaks. And to be fair, I could tell you 10 times over 36 holes. I'm not saying I should have sank all of them, but some of them occasionally, usually, would go in. Some percentage would go in, and I got no percentage that went in. Yeah. And it was weird because I played the first holes I wasn't nervous. I was excited, but I basically started off the tournament with 4 fours in a row. The second day, I started off my second round 1 under through 3. So it wasn't nerves, and I wasn't like, oh, this is too big a moment for me. I just didn't have any of those kind of events that give you buoyancy. So that's all.
Yeah.
I will take questions. Who's that? Mr. O'Connor from Swing Thoughts?
Oh, I'm not going to ask you a question. I'm just going to pontificate.
Please do.
To me, it's like hockey. Your goalie makes an exceptional save.
Yes.
The whole bench gets enlivened, but every once in a while, something happens. It deflects off somewhere and goes in, and like, oh, dang it. And it's the same in putting. I mean, it's emotionally, it's the hardest part of golf. And the irony of it, it's the simplest stroke in golf. I mean, you always have a perfect lie, and it's this very uncomplicated stroke. But as we've had on before, Scott Fawcett, sometimes the hole gets in the way, and sometimes it does not. And it doesn't mean that your stroke is off or anything. It's just that some days, it's hole by hole, but sometimes it just doesn't go in. And like, there's just such slim margin for error. And like, here, I'll just give you this piece. I remember one time, Sean Foley was telling me about this. He had what's called I think it's called a perfect putter. And so you put the ball in this thing, it has a ramp. And so it launches the ball at the exact spot at the exact same speed every time. And so he took 10 balls and he put this thing on a little slopey lie and released 10 balls. 10 out of 10 go in. He moves it back to something like 8 feet. 8 out of 10 go in. Takes it back. It's like 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
So what you're dealing with is like you're dealing with an uneven surface. You put even Augusta National greens, you put them under a microscope, looks like broccoli heads. And so it's just, I don't know. The word is, I don't know what it is. It's capricious.
Well, getting back to what you said, I'd written this down. It's funny you mentioned hockey because I said it's like in hockey, there's a thing called puck luck.
Yeah, that it is. Yeah,
and I would say what happened to me for those 36 holes is I just didn't have any puck luck. And the thing about golf, like that's why I said I putted very nicely. I just didn't. The hole just didn't get in the way of the ball sometimes. Just not enough times. And the thing is, not making that 5-footer after an amazing recovery shot I wasn't bummed. I wasn't pissed off, but just it's like it's a little deflating because not only do you not save the shot, but it doesn't give you any kind of, like I was talking about this with Kent, when you do that, it makes things seem possible.
Yeah, you don't get that mojo uplift.
You don't get the uplift. And what my rounds felt like was that I was kind of swimming in jello. Like it was very, and to make matters worse, like I say, I started off the first round, and it's ironic. I ended up playing with the guy that I qualified for within June. So we both played well in June, and I actually beat him. But we both, everyone in my group that I qualified in my qualifier, we all qualified for this tournament. So I knew the guy, and he's a very good player. And so we start off. I made 4 fours in a row. One of those was a birdie, one of those was a bogey. So I'm even par. This guy in the first 7 or 8 holes had 6 1-putts. Not 1-footer putts, a 10-footer, an 8-footer, a 15-footer, a 7-footer. He literally should have been 7 over after 7 and was even. And so, and I'm not going to lie, I'm just a human being. That irked to me. Absolutely it did. And then watching, and we all, in these tournaments, we play with the same group the first 2 days. Watching it 2 days in a row, I wanted to bury my putter in my head. Like, seriously. I can't, and every time I think, well, surely this isn't going to go in, is it, golf? Anyway, you want to talk about a story. So while I'm not even lipping out, some of them were just putts that, the 35th hole of the round, the 2 guys I'm playing with, I had a 12-foot putt for birdie, and they're like, give it to him. It's like a foot from the hole, and golf's like, fuck you, Howie, and it just slides by. And those guys said, I don't know, Howard, what to tell you. I don't know what you've done to piss off golf, but something. Like, it was so apparent that, and again, 5 shots over 36 holes, it's not much.
What was apparent? Well, it was apparent
that this wasn't my day.
Yeah.
And putting was probably the thing I was doing the most instinctively. Mm-hmm. Like, I really felt good. The greens weren't super fast, but they were rolling beautifully. I really felt good on the greens. So that's the difference between making the cut and not. And as I said to Kent, that's the difference between making the cut and having to wear the caddy bib, because they make you do that. At the provincial level, you got anybody who's caddying. So yeah, I went there so I won't make the cut, but I showed up Thursday with all those guys that I knew. They're all like, "Hey, what time are you off?" I go, "Well, I'm here caddying for my buddy." And they kind of looked at me like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I made a promise. I'm going to keep it."
There you go. I love that. Yeah. Just before we finish today's show, I mean, it's just so up and down. Like, it was the Open Championship, I think 3 years or so ago. Rory looked to be heading to victory, and then in the final round, he just couldn't make a putt. It just would just slide by, lip out, and then Cam Smith, the Australian.
That's right,
he of the mullet. They just started to go in for him, and but man, it's just interesting because not many putts have been going in for Cam Smith in the last couple of years. So.
And there's a guy at our course. He says this when it's an irritating thing, but I'll say, "Oh, that was a great putt." He goes, "No, if it was a great putt, it would have gone in." Okay. By the way, that guy also has a fucking mullet. Anyway, but I felt like I putted the ball nicely. And yes, I had a story developing, but I kept on trying. Like I said, I had to. The problem with not making the cut or having to try and make the cut is I knew going in that day, and I didn't look at any of the scores, but I knew if I shot 84, I know typically it would have been probably 160 to make the cut. So 76 or 75, which isn't impossible.
No.
I shoot that a lot.
You've done it
and
many,
especially
many
the way I started off birdie, par, par. And I was like, this is cool. I'm out here. Let's keep it going. And I do what Carl's taught me to just
the 3
play. So I go birdie, par, par, and I make a little mark on my card. And I go, okay, let's see what the next 3 holes will bring. And just to kind of, again, I just never had that momentum, that buoyancy at any point in the round. In fact, on the back nine, I made 7 pars, but the other 2 holes were double bogeys. So anyway, it was a good experience, and I'm glad I did it. And now in a week from this weekend, I'm going to New Brunswick for the New Brunswick Senior Am.
Oh, far out.
On to the next major, and I hope to take some of the lessons I learned from this week to that, and from what I learned from Kent and Ryan Fox, which is, once you've made a decision, I got to get over the ball and swing. Not swing fast. I just have to stop questioning that I know how to do this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a key thing. It's like, so I have a blog that's on my Substack, and I talk about how I can watch some players once I coach people I play with. You can almost hear the gears grinding.
Yeah.
As they go through like this pre-shot process of basically they're standing over the ball, fidgeting, fussing, regripping, and they're going through this checklist like a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did this thing. I have this client who's very slow over the ball. So I did this thing where I would basically, I rolled balls to him. I said, hit him like a one-timer.
Yeah.
And he was just, not all of them, but he's hitting them solid. And he's just like, he just has to hit shot after shot after shot. And he goes like, holy shit.
There's a Marty Chuck. I don't know if I know that Martin, who tour striker Martin, I'm not sure if it's his device, but I've seen him use a device like that. It's basically like one of those things you see at the range where the ball will pop up.
Yeah.
He's got a device that does exactly what you said. It literally will, the ball will come out and then roll towards you, and you hit it.
Yep.
And I would tell you that or our version of that drill is line up 5 balls on tees and just hit them one after the other. Hey, thanks very much to Craig Watkins. The tour he's talking about is the onegolftour.com in Southern Ontario. Are we taking, I know we're going to take a couple of weeks off. Is it next week and the following week?
No, next week we record with Chris Powers of Golf Digest.
Right.
He is he's got that great little recurring piece, Stupid Golf Problems.
Right.
We had a great time with him a few months ago, so he's coming back next Friday. And then we're going to take the next week. The week after that off.
A brand new show that will be released on the 31st, which is a week from now. And then the following week, I'm in New Brunswick, which I'm really looking forward to. It's going to be very cool. And as always, Nicholas, tell us where we can get this program, if you wouldn't mind.
Of course. So you'll find us on our Instagram and Twitter at swing_thoughts_podcast, our YouTube, Swing Thoughts 1, and our TikTok, Swing Thoughts 4.
And Coach Tim's going to send you that video and just put it up on our YouTube channel so people can have a look at it. Actually, if you could do that as well, Nick, in the notes on those other social platforms, if you could put a link to that video or whatever, that would be great too.
Will do.
Is that even possible?
I'll make it possible.
No, you can do it, man. I appreciate you. This program is brought to you by TaylorMade Golf, the QI40 drivers. They're fastest, most fittable drivers yet. It's time to find your new fast. If you want to find Coach Tim, where do you go?
O'ConnorGolf.ca or read my Substack, toconnor.substack.com.
And of course, this program is produced, the executive producer of the Humble and Fred Radio Network. And we'll see you in 1 week's time.